It's funny, with the heavy tractors, I actually have to put a brace because these things are so heavy that depending upon what's going on, I could literally shove everything. You never move in this table. At this table, I got to move this thing actually. In order to move it, you have to empty everything. But with the bigger tractor, yeah, it can shove things along, and these tractors can't really fully move it. I have not been able to do that yet, so that comes in handy. It's clean, right? It's as clean as it's gonna get, from me at least. But that's clean. It's all clean. You can see how nice and clean the aluminum got, right? That's the phosphoric. It'll even take all this rust off. And you might be saying, well, what's all this splatter yuck? Well, that is a precipitate. It is essentially the phosphoric acid, has some zinc in it. So you get a zinc phosphate that comes out of solution, and it has an electrical affinity for steel, but particularly rusty surfaces, and that deposition actually protects the metal. It wipes off. You can actually, it can get a little chalky, but it's been rinsed. But you see, I can see it on my fingers. It's kind of a salt. It's a good way to think about it. And you know, you can wipe it off with a bit of solvent. You just spray right over it, really, it doesn't matter. But, you know, we'll wipe it a little bit, but it'll protect it. In fact, if you have a steel panel or something, like in here, that was all rusty and everything. You could leave it out. I wouldn't leave it out in the rain, but let's say, you know, it's really humid today. It's been humid all day. It looks like it's going to rain again. Especially this kind of Long Island weather. I think it'd sit out. Now, another thing I noticed, too, it's a little bent, but I made a rod. This is the lift rod, or flat bar, and somebody used this flat bar stock and put a twist in it. Well, actually, it's been twisted, so we need to straighten that. It's a little bit not. There's really not enough material here, so it needs some reinforcement. That might come another day. Next time he comes back, I might tell him to bring his attachment, or we can use, you know, mine. So that needs to be beefed up. But I like that somebody did this. This is not original. I don't believe it is. And I like that idea because that's very simple to make, than as opposed to the one that I made. Now, word of caution, and that's for you, Mike, and I think I mentioned to or anybody else, you could fix this, right? You could give it a tweak, you can heat that up. However, don't do it on the machine because you're going to be putting the kind of lateral forces, these torsional forces, on the other side of that, where that would never see forces like that to bend that straight again. And it probably bent because it's not really strong enough. But an advantage to doing something like this for me is if I can map out this entire system. You know, I didn't do it when I was making my lift rod, but I would need to draw it out, take pictures of it, and physically measure everything, and then look at the geometry. And then I could figure out how to enhance it so that I can physically lift more than I'm lifting now, just by some simple math and some geometry. A little leverage. Everything's looking real good. Even though I washed it and cleaned it and shot it, oh, you can see this was all rusted in there. That was all rust. That's if I put it on there again, it would be rust free. So we're going to try to get a little bit of rusty metal primer all in there. And again, even though I cleaned it, there's still stuff in there, and you can see mouse house garbage. That's one of the problems with this. This motor is in better shape than mine. It doesn't blow smoke from one end. She doesn't seem to be leaking. She definitely needs motor mounts. But when you get a lot of junk built up in these areas here, that's how you'll kill a cylinder. In a heartbeat. You'll freeze up a valve, you'll wear it. And that would be a shame for this guy, because this guy's in beautiful shape. Oh, actually, it looks like a hunk of crap. It's not a hunk of crap, fellas. It looks rude. What did you do to it? You made it worse. They didn't make it worse. Stop. All right. All this looks all good. I kind of blew it off. It's been sitting and drying. We'll get a little paint on a few spots. So Monday, I'm going to jack it up. What are you going to do? Oh, stop. Everybody's always got a dirty mind. I'm not going to jack it off. I'm going to jack it up. We're going to bring it up. I'm going to pull these tires off. Well, rims, really. Tires are on the way for this. But I'm going to pull these off. and get in there and inspect and lubricate, because like on mine, I've got mine set up where you'll never, even with your feet, you can't even get it to, this is the lock for the brake, parking brake, and it doesn't work right. It's all jammed. So we want to get through all of these in here. We got all kinds of joints too, circ fittings, or whatever you want to call them, to lube up, put a little bit more lube inside there. That spring that I showed you, that's not correct. I guess the torsional spring broke over here. I'm gonna pull this battery out and let this dry in here, because we got that pretty good with the phosphoric acid. So we're gonna put a little rusty metal primer on that. So I've been milking this tire along. It's flat again, and I'm worried that these things are gonna blow out, and then I really won't be able to move this thing. So this has got one more day here. We'll get through everything we need to get through. That's absolutely important. And then I go clean up in the garage, make a spot for it. Yeah, she's kind of nasty in here. The rim was stuck on, and then when I couldn't, it didn't want to move, and then all of a sudden it popped. So maybe the brakes got stuck. So this is essentially the adjuster, but it's one of the adjusters, and it's the same thing on the other side. Let's go look. So while we clean all this off, right, there's cake up in here, we'll vacuum all that off. And tranny's not leaking, that all looks good. And we'll pop this nut. Now there is a sort of crush nut over, it's a flap locking washer. Probably never been off. We should take a peek in there. Let's just go look at the other side. It's really basically the same thing. We'll clean up first. All right, see, so same kind of actuator, but it's down here where the adjustment truly is. Right, so we can get it adjusted, but I think we should just get in there and take a peek first, get everything lubricated, and check on it, because I'm probably not going to do anything now, but we're going to have to find brakes for his and my machine. No better time than the present to take a good peek in here, get a look at the condition of his machine, and I never was in mine, but we can infer. Mine adjusts properly, and mine is easy enough to where I can push all this forward, and essentially when I'm standing over the machine, I can actually lock it with my hands, with an arm. His you can't, you can barely do it with a foot. Let's take a peek in here, right? First, we gotta knock this flat or over for a little bit. Let's just see. Never been off, I've never been in mine. Let me get my blunt screwdriver and my other screwdriver. Let's just see if we can just peel it back a little bit. We just need enough to get a socket on. Is this big enough? I don't think so. I felt like it wanted to go on. What size? 1 7/16". Yeah. Let's see what else we got. I gotta get some new big sockets. That's kind of right. It must be like a metric or something. This is 1.5 inches. Let's see what else I have. This might work if we bang it on. Let's just see. I don't want to cause a problem. What we need is a one with flats. That might work. Well, that's all I have. But it may not be on that tight. Yeah, I think it's just mostly crap. We'll clean it off. Ready? Oh yeah. All right, we'll get that out. We'll drive that out in a bit. That's got a weird smell to it. Can we get this off? It might be a little difficult. Let's get some lube. I have the diagram of what's in here, but we don't know what condition all of this is in. Might want to let me grab a wire wheel, just on the drill, and just kind of run it around there real quick and clean it up. It's time to get some more wire wheels, cheap ones. That's all you need, but I gotta get some, like a pack. There we go. Yeah, the cap's coming off. We need to get the caps for these things. It looks like it's the same kind of cap design that we see on the front, just shorter. Now, is this going to come off? Yeah, I guess I got to do mine because it's probably all stuck. I think I have the rear caps for mine. I mean, it's a good idea to put caps on this. You can see why, because you see what's happening. Let's get, let me try to sneak in past you, but it's cast, so you don't want to crack it. Let's get a dead blow. Notice there's something there. I don't think we're going to be able to get it off. Right? There's a little point there. A little bit of play in that. You can feel it. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get that off. There's a big key. So that key, this is probably all pressed on. Probably needs some kind of a puller to go in there. That would be my guess. So I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of hold this to the side. Let me go over to the other side before we get more involved in this, because we may not want to do this. If I'm going to do it, I might want to do it online because it's just going to take a lot more time. But we see we're in neutral. I want to go over to the other side. I'll kind of set up. You're probably not going to be able to see everything, so I'll bring you in. All right, let me go over to the other side and actuate the brake so I can actually see what's going on there. Well, it's grabbing on this side. Yeah, I think she's okay. So it's definitely grabbing on the other side. It's probably okay. Let me go over to the other side. I'll bring you in, like I said, and I'm going to adjust the actuator. All right, let's take a look. So I'm going to actuate it. I cleaned up this surface here too on both sides. The rim was getting a little stuck around here, so if I have to do it again, I'll do it next time. We're just going to put the wheel back on with 3 bolts so we can get this thing down. Well, maybe we should put more than that on there because it is an awfully heavy machine. We're going to bring it around tomorrow over to a spot I got to clean up because we got to get it out of here. We got to get it off the table. We still have some stuff to do up front. Now, what I do is I took a look at mine and I adjusted this. I backed it out to about 1/2 inch. Okay, as you can see there, if you can see it. All right. And it's a little bit more than mine, but as I'll show you in a minute, and we'll go to the other side. But let me just actuate it. So I'm able to actuate it, and I'm going to try to put the lock on. All right, lock is on. Okay. So, and we'll come over to the other side in a bit. So that should be good. So I'm able to do that with my hand. Well, you got to put some good pressure on it to get it to come back this far, but I think we're okay. All right, I'll zoom in a bit. So like areas like this too, we can get. I'll try and get around to the other side too, but I've been hitting everything chain wax. So chain wax, and then I'm also using the chain lube. So I already got all in there, all up in here we did. I've been hitting this for a while now and trying to get the shaft started hitting whatever we already did up in here, but since I rinsed it again, I rinsed it, I guess, afterwards. Now, one of the things I might want to do is this could use a washer here. And on mine, I put washers in a number of places, but I think this might be a good spot. So before I put it down, I'll do that. So with one hand, really, but I just kind of used the 2 hands. But we can see she's doing good, right? And the chain wax is good in these areas. So some areas it's really good. It does provide a protective coating. And then, yeah, I'm going to be in your way, but I can just push it forward, see, and there's your lock, all right? Although I need to be a little closer to it to get fully locked and engaged. All right, we're good. We're going to take a peek underneath before I put the tires on. I got almost everything I need. you can see here, there's a spot, right, for a grease fitting, all up through here. You get comfortable. All right, we'll try to get all through here. The grease fitting carries grease almost all the way over to the other side. But literally any area that moves or spins or rotates is what I've been hitting. And especially in these areas here, like all of these linkages, right? Just get something on them. Get something on the spring if you can. The chain wax works pretty good. Anything to protect it. You don't want to be having this stuff rot because she's going to sit on the ground for a period of time. I told him, I said, you might want to think about putting down some item number 2, a gravel or something for good drainage. Get it up off the ground over the winter, or just drive it up on some blocks with some gravel. We're going to jack it up in the air in a bit. I'm going to get to, we'll put some grease and clean off that shaft over there for the PTO. Right, spline should be cleaned. So I think I got just about everything. Let's just take a peek from the other side. So again, all of these areas in here, up in here, you know, anything we can do, to help mitigate issues, all up in here as well. Right, shot as much lubricant in all of those. That is like a bumper. It's actually a shock absorber. It helps to reduce the shock loading. And then there's that, which those slide through those nylon blocks. So you want to get some chain wax, some type of chain lube in there. This is the shifter. So that's the shifter for high and low. Let's see what else we can get here. Like this spring here, up in here. You can see on the other side there. There's some grease popping out of that. That's good. All those linkages. There's more linkages back up in here too. You'll have to, let me see if I get comfortable. All right, so you're probably not going to see them, but they're way back there. Here. No, some will get from the top, but I got what I could from the bottom. The most important thing is it's clean underneath here, and you can get to everything, and it's just kind of that one-time cleaning. Also chain wax up in these guys. If you want, you can smoosh a little bit of grease up in there. I think I'll do that too, just with your finger. So we'll get to these areas in a bit. Let's get the tires on and get it down in the back and get it stable, and then we'll lift up the front. All right, last look before I put the back wheels on. So I got some white lithium as well in there. So oil, chain wax, chain lube, white lithium. It was a mess. And in here, I mentioned I wanted to put a few more things, so I did squirt some white lithium spray in all those places. That was the only thing I could think of, you know, all the areas I mentioned earlier, especially for like steel on steel. So I think we look pretty good here. Same thing in there. Same thing with all the places I mentioned underneath, right? We went over that. Up in here, I'm going to hit these areas too with some white lithium in a bit. But let me get this down. Oh, it looks real good. A little bit of paint, little things cleaned up a little. Let me get it down and put the tires on. We'll go to the front. We'll see what that shows up. I know it's a little bit dark, but I don't feel like putting all the lights on right now. We got to get this thing down. All right, I'm getting there. So it's cleaned up a little bit more. You can see, you know, we're putting it back together, and everything looks a little bit better. Just a little bit of rusty metal primer and a little bit of paint in a few spots. You know, this isn't a restoration, but one thing I wanted to point out. So a couple of weeks ago, because it's been here for a while, right? I put that plug in with the insert, and I glued the insert in with it with Loctite, okay? And then I ran it for quite some time, and then we let it sit overnight. I think it was the next day, maybe the day after we ran it, and it was fine. Now, let me turn that little light on. Hold on. Yeah, she's running okay. By the way, a little bit dark. Oh, I just picked up a little piece of dirt. I'm gonna brush that off. A little bit dark, considering it's a brand new plug, right? So, she run a little rich. That's okay. What are you going to do? She probably burning just a scotch of oil. Remember, we saw the plugs originally, and I said it was running a little bit rich. Better than mine, but, you know, we didn't run it for very long. It hasn't been put to work, so it hasn't gotten really hot. We got it hot, but not really hot. let's put the plugs back in. I think worst case scenario is he pops another set of plugs in, like what I do every year. I either clean them or put a new set in. You can see these are starting to go. Let's see. Right? So what we'll do, now let's fix this. What we can do now, but eventually, I got chain lube up in there. We'll get it from the front too. But you can also smooch, take a dollop of grease. You can also do this too. Just starting to get a little sharp because it's wearing. Some of this stuff, you can go from the other side. I think you can get at other dealers. I mean, they're basically the same. I want to say, what's that? Oh, what the hell's the name of it? Place. Oh, I can't think of the name of it. Something, McMaster Car. They have rod ends that will probably work fine if you want to get the thread right and everything. Just take your time. Now up here, the manual calls out for oil. So we're gonna just wet it up good and let it druze in. Same thing with the bushing for the power steering. But obviously there's two places here. There's another place too. I gotta look at the manual again. But there's a few places. Okay, the water. That's why I wanted to do this again. He's like, well, I already did it. I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna be pressure washing this. And you know, I don't know what else, how long it's been, or you've left it sit outside. A couple of good pumps should do it. Yeah, she's pulling out on the other side. All right, let me wipe it up, move it around a little bit, and it'll do the other side, which, you know, we don't need to do this bearing because we're going to pull these rims off. We'll repack. So this is a problem that I had before on my machine. And so this is the idler tensioner. And it has to spin on that shaft. And you can see what I did was I had to peen over, like the threads are kind of beat. We're going to see if we can get that grease fitting to fit in there. Once again, it's real hard to do. I had to take mine apart and put a different grease fitting in it and clean it out. There's a very small passage, like a slot that runs through this shoulder bolt and allows grease to go in there and grease that whole bushing up that's inside. And the grease will dry. Like it's the problem with a lot of greases. And if you notice, a lot of times if you watch me, you'll see I put oil in certain grease reservoirs before I put more grease in because grease dries. This thing blew the fitting out because the hydraulic pressure is so high, but I did get grease in it. So if we can get the grease fitting back in. Now what I used was, I have a lot of different punches, but this kind of requires a punch you can really get in there. Obviously, okay, I made this from heck shaft, but it was probably an oil drive rod for a Ford or something, like a Ford small block. Obviously that happens. I mean, it's really hard to get at that grease fitting when the belts and such are on. That's why it doesn't receive a lot of attention. In this situation here where we have so much of it apart, if you have to do belts, it's a great time to do it. The other one that's problematic is this whole sleeve here, which is all part of this drive system, right? Your PTO takeoff. That will also lock up, and that happened to me as well. It doesn't get the attention it needs. You're not going to get this part. You don't want to fool with this. Get this lubricated. Do what you got to do. I had to go in there and pick it out, take the grease fittings out, pick it out, put penetrant in. It took a day or so to free mine up. His is okay. We got some grease. I can see it came in, started to come out from behind. All right, let me keep working, and we're basically done at this point. If I can get that grease fitting back in, it's going to struggle for a little while. We'll clean this area up a little bit, throw a little bit of paint on it, and then we can put some covers and a few other things on. Sorry, we got light in the way. A lot of light to try to do something like this, so it's going to be a lot of washout